What's up, Roots and Fruits community? We are back with the 4-part mold mini-series brought to you by Microbalance Health Products. And today I am so genuinely excited and overjoyed to welcome Andrew Melrose to the Roots and Fruits podcast. Andrew is a mold expert and the owner of Melrose Mold Solutions. He helps people all over the world in their situations with mold in their home. He consults with them and helps them to make the best plan of action. I love this chat with Andrew. I love his no nonsense approach to this and how he integrates his faith into his practice, consulting with people and helping coach them through all of the aspects of dealing with mold in your home. So let's get into it.
Mycophenolic acid is used for patients who got a new kidney to shut down the immune system so they don't fight. The body doesn't go and attack the new kidney. That's how immune suppressive it is.
My family recently lost our home, our health, and most of our belongings to mold. What started off as vague, mysterious symptoms and suspicions became a full-blown health and home crisis. It shook us. Living in a trailer for 4 months while pregnant and with a toddler has not been easy, but one thing that's come of it is a lot of research down the deep, dark rabbit hole of mold. I've partnered with Microbalance Health to bring you a 4-part mold mini-series to educate, inspire, and hopefully empower you to take good steps in your life against mycotoxins and their toxic, detrimental effects on human health. This is our story. These are the experts we trust. This is the Roots and Fruits podcast, The Mold Files.
Andrew, welcome to the Roots and Fruits podcast.
Hello. Good to be on here. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. I bet you're a busy, popular guy in this particular sphere. So I'm very excited to chat. And tell me what kind of got you into the world of mold. I feel like it's not something you know, when you're 5, you're like, I'm going to be a mold expert. So what led you here?
Yeah. And it's a wild industry. It's a niche industry, but I realize how expansive it really is. Until it really gets uncovered to you, then you realize how prevalent and how big it really is. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm very into health. I've always been into health. I really am fascinated by the body, how the mind interacts with the body, emotional aspects, just every aspect of health, spirit, soul, and body. And I went through a radical life change at age 20, and that's a whole story in itself. But as time went on, I was realizing the importance of the body and the health of it. And then I met a guy who'd been in this industry for 20 some years, and I realized I was missing a huge pillar of health, which was the environment. I knew
Mhm.
nothing of it. So shadowed him on a few inspections and realized within a week or two, I was like, okay, this is actually more of a health procedure than it is a, kind of a blue collar construction style, pump some air, walk in and out of a house, like, you know, treat it like HGTV. And so that's what started to stir kind of the passion in me, is realizing that this is going to help people's health if I do my job well. Then I started to see all the emotional impacts, the financial impacts of mold, and just the intimacy of someone's home being impacted. And I was like, wow, I have to either be out of this industry or I have to do very, very good and learn as much as I can. Um, because it's fragile, a lot of it is. So then I just started researching this industry very, very thoroughly, seeing the discrepancies in it, realizing how much I had to learn and that I will be a continual student. No one person can know it all in this. And then how do I work alongside, health practitioners and understand the health impacts as well. So just kind of went diving in 7 years
Yeah.
ago and haven't stopped.
Wow. Yeah, I might be following you. So my family, we went through this whole health crisis with our home in the past 4 months, and we've been living in a trailer that is mold free. I know that's a whole concern for the
Yeah.
past 4 months as we kind of wait to take possession of a new house. So I'm like, as professionally, mold was on my radar as a holistic nutritionist. Doing live blood analysis is something that comes up, but going through it now personally,
Wow.
I'm like, okay, this might be the next rabbit hole for the rest of my life that I commit to. So super cool to hear that on your end. And it's true, there's always more to learn. However, I would like to talk about, you mentioned some of the discrepancies in the industry. Um, from what you've learned so far, what can you say about that? Like, speak to kind of maybe more conventional, as you say, like home building side of things and why there's gaps there and
Hmm.
yeah, what's kind of being overlooked there.
Great and loaded question. I think that there's a lot of uh, because there's not incentives for certain things as well. Really, when you follow the money, you end up finding out a lot of reasons for things.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that different um, Western medicine or mainstream kind of people, I do think they know the impacts of mold and mycotoxins and environmental contaminants. They've simply picked and choose like what they would call that. So there's been mercury as an environmental thing and asbestos as an environmental thing. I just don't know how the mold aspect has really stuck. I think there's a lot of politics around it in hiding certain things, or really what I've found that's most frustrating is the passing of responsibility and this whole fear of liability. And it's tough, very, very tough line to draw, whose responsibility was this? I mean, just think about a home real quick. There's 20 different industries, maybe more. And commercial buildings, 150 actually. I just had a structural engineer who's done big commercial buildings, 150 different specialties or potential contractors that collide on a location to build a building. So in a home, maybe we have 15 or 20: plumber, roof, HVAC. I mean, how many different things
Mhm.
come to a home? So, and they're all trying to avoid mold. They don't say it. They literally don't say the mold word. And but I do think that we all know that it is a problem beyond
Mhm.
just aesthetic. So building errors can happen, lack of good maintenance. Some houses I go into, it's like this literally was caused by the homeowner just completely missing something, neglecting something, and that can happen. And that's also what's on a spectrum is like, was this caused by an actual contractor? Is this a natural disaster? Again, who does the liability fall on? And at this point in life, I think we don't need to get so emotionally charged on whose fault it is. We all need to just gather together and say, let's just detect it and solve it. Let's just actually take the responsibility to solve it. That's on the home side, and there's many dynamics of it on how to assess a home properly and everything. With the
Mhm.
health, there is a lot of research, and you probably know this too, on Stachybotrys toxic black mold that everyone talks about was used for chemical warfare. Mycophenolic acid, this is a very personal one to me, is a mycotoxin that is produced from certain penicillium species. Okay, so it goes mold type or genus, then it goes to species in the mold type or genus, and then it goes mycotoxin produced from those species. So that's how they kind of subdivide. I would say spider, type of spider, and then the venom that it would release or whatever is how it subdivides. And that's how microbiology can be in this as well. So, we get focus on mycotoxins, and this is mycophenolic acid is that is used for patients who got a new kidney to shut down the immune system so they don't fight, the body doesn't go and attack the new kidney. That's how immune suppressive it is. So when I found in my personal blood sample that mycophenolic acid was off the chart, it made a ton of sense as to why my body had some trouble fighting off viruses and a weak immune system growing up. And I'm going, okay, they're not going to ever blame a mycotoxin from inhalation in a building and overgrowth of mold, but they themselves are using it for immune suppression for a specific purpose. This is fascinating stuff. So there's just a lot of dots need to be connected and bridges between, health professionals and building professionals. And yeah, I could go on and on. That's just
Wow.
one aspect of your question, and it's an extremely loaded one. So if you want me to unpack it more, just tell me where.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. And that's, yeah, as you say, connecting those dots, people like you who are doing that, like how, I don't know really what it looks like to be you in terms of like the connections you have and all that, but how are you trying to like bridge that gap or connect those dots or does that make sense?
Of
Like,
course,
I don't
great
know.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
I have to work in parallel with a lot of amazing doctors and health practitioners, and um, much respect for them because they work day to day with the health of the body and like how do we test and heal the body, and what are we testing for, and what are the right questions to ask, and make sure we're not turning a blind eye to someone's daily nutrition, hydration, genetics. I mean, how many different things now? Okay, so put the home aside. How many things in the body are colliding into what true health and well being is? Someone can have a very, very healthy um, body and mind and emotions and things, but genetically they're just hurting, or vice versa. It's only a relational trauma that is now causing the body to be in dissonance and nervous system, you know, stress. So now, in the home, the the problem is people who take mold. as a money grab and too much greed, and they use the fear and use all that kind of to their advantage, which is way, way off. A lot of injustices in the industry. The other side is those who gaslight and, oh no, mold's not a problem. And it's like, why are you even in the industry if it's not like, just go do something else. If you're going in to like do a couple random air samples for 500 bucks, give everyone false negatives and no information. So there's two extremes in the building side. And then, what you asked about how to work in tandem with health practitioners, it's really different depending on the person. So the health practitioner has to ask the right questions, get an idea of, we've been working on these things and there's just a block, like, and then asking about the home. So I encourage health practitioners start that early in the process, like before you go 6 months into a protocol and you didn't ask, hey, do you feel worse in the home versus out of the home? When the HVAC system or seasons change, like, is there any symptoms? There's literally like 3 to 5 basic questions, just not even claiming to be an expert or do any certain thing, but just getting a feel on, could this be the environment? What's the age of the home? When did you move in? Did anything change since then? These different correlating dots to connect. That then kind of will filter somebody to maybe be more sent my way so that I can test and heal the home. And then your testing and healing of the body is hopefully more effective.
Yeah. Okay, so
Because
in terms of testing and healing the home, I guess that's like another whole conversation, but I'm curious, do you have some sort of not like formula or framework, but
yeah.
when does someone need to leave their home and when is like remediation removal possible, right? Like some of these homes it's like it's too far gone. Like is it worth the money to be like for us it was like we put all of our money trying to fix it and then we
Mm,
have nothing and we're like the only solution here is like ripping it to the studs and like replacing
wow.
everything. So we're like it's not worth it. The home's not worth that much, right? So from the remediation standpoint, like can you walk into a house and be like, I'm sure every building, everywhere, there's some degree of mold, but like at what point is it too much? And then, does that make sense? Like,
100%. Yeah. Guys, Josie is asking the $1 million question, or is asking the one that then unpacks $1 million
yeah.
questions. And this is what I really hope as time goes on and technology improves, that we can actually like get a really nice detection score idea of certain things. So the $1 million questions are, how much has my health? This is number one priority, is our health. Okay. How much has my health been impacted by this current home that I'm in? Okay. Is it 90% of my problem, or is it maybe only 10? Even that will help us decide if it's 90% of the problem based on the house being bad. And I'll talk about that criteria in a second. Then we need to put our efforts towards that to help the body. What I don't like is, because of the invisibilities and the unknowns and the, oh my gosh, with the home, sometimes, not everybody, sometimes people will be in a house that's pretty darn good and maybe only impacting them 10%. And now, again, this is all hypothesis, but they'll put most of their focus on that 10% getting perfect, right? So that's a kind of a losing battle. And so this is the thing where you need a good environmental health assessment in the home to say, okay, if we're, and it's all on a spectrum. Every home has mold, yes, just to what degree is the key. And a good health assessment of the home will determine, okay, we have a lot of things working against us here. We're on top of a damp crawl space. The house is 1960s, so we might even be dealing with asbestos and lead containing materials if we do start demoing. Um, we're inheriting the history of the home. That's now a 60-year-old home. How much dust and issues and problems has happened in this home, how many things were covered up. We're kind of fighting an uphill battle just from certain things. Now, some old homes are fantastic, by the way, and everything is fixable. But what's the degree, like you said, to get it fixed? Is it a full gut to now fix it? It's like at that point, it's, you do have to weigh, the pros and cons of all this. But if we have a
Mhm.
lot of things working against us, that's why the house assessment is really important. Because if we have only one mold source in the house, let's remediate that properly, localize it, do it according to all the proper protocols, deep clean the house after the rest of it, and then really implement these maintenance steps for a good fortification and maintenance and proactive maintenance, really, for the future. But everyone has a different score in the home, right? And so when people are up at like the, what I would say, 8 or 9 out of 10, like 10 being really not just high contamination and severe problems, but widespread. Okay, we have a really messed up HVAC system. We have a damp crawl space. We have multiple water damage areas under sinks. We have no exhaust. Like now, it's like the bill is going to just like rise so much, and
Yeah.
it's just we're fighting a very uphill battle. Where it's like that's where we start to cut our losses and say, if we're living in 8 or 9, is it worth the effort to remediate and clean? And what's the probability we get it down to a 1 or 2 to where we actually need to live? Is the body still going to have cellular memory responding to what's happened in that home, where now we actually need to just go and on the market we find a 4 or 5, and then we do the necessary fixes on the way into the house, which is a much higher likelihood of success to get it down. So there's a million different, situations I've been through that help me kind of score them, or and I don't have an official scoring system yet, but get ideas of like what's the likelihood of getting back to a mold safe level, and everyone's on a different one.
Mhm.
Great question, and really, really hard to say. The final one is, which of these sources is actually most impacting? So the toughest part of my job is going, okay, we have 3 sources in the house. I want to get them all handled properly for you, but their budget allows this much, and several other factors are at play. If we had to prioritize one that we have to do as a red flag area, that's a little bit on me and on them. And it's like, if I had a crystal ball, I could know, actually, all 3 are impacting you one third, one third, one third, or actually, no, this one is the red flag and that one's impacting you 90%. The other are just, minor.
Mhm.
So again, this is kind of how to even help the body. If you're a health practitioner who looks holistically, you're going, if you, change your diet, you're probably going to move the needle the most, and then we'll fill in the gaps with these other things.
Totally. Yeah, that's always number 1 in my work. It's like people come to me, they're like, "I wanna do a parasite cleanse." I'm like, "Cool. What are you eating?" And it's like, don't spend $800 on this fancy kit when, like, you're eating fast food. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's not
Exactly.
gonna work, it's a waste of money, like, all this stuff. So, I'm
That's
totally
right.
with you.
Yeah.
So when it comes to testing and, like, as you're saying, that home assessment, which you
Hmm.
do, um, how could that's a question I get a lot because I've been really open with our personal journey on social media,
Hmm.
and people are always asking me questions about mold. I'm like, "I'm not a mold expert, but I wanna become one." Um, I feel like that's a gap, at least where we are in Canada. Like, I don't even know who to trust. Like,
Yeah.
people just do air samples, right? There's no other really option that is at least commonly brought forth when someone's desperate and reaching out just around them for help to the people that
Yeah.
are there. So I would love you to educate the listeners. What are the best testing options and why, if someone does suspect mold in their home? And then also, like, with holding that financial bit too, because, like, as you said,
Yes.
like, people can take advantage of you. So I just really want people to be educated, because if they're starting to think about this, the last thing I want them to do is go waste $3,000 on some sample that didn't even give them the answers they're looking for. So
Agree.
yeah, so what would you tell people in that realm?
Agree, agree. So if I'll put a quick parallel. If I walk into your office to get help with my health, and you said,
Mhm.
"I'm not going to learn anything about your life, not going to ask you any questions. You're going to take this magic cheek swab, and that's going to tell me everything systemically about your body," I would say, "I'll
Yeah,
go to the next doctor." Right? You would never do that.
yeah,
So
totally.
same with these mold tests. If we lead in with the wrong expectation that any one test is going to determine everything about the house, we're we're already on the totally wrong foot. I'm very much a test second person,
Mhm.
inspector, and I would say most good inspectors are test second, because just like you, if you know what you're talking about, you can read the person, read their questionnaires, and get an idea of their lifestyle, all these different things. You're starting to do a process of elimination and going, these are probably the best tests for this and this reason based on all this stuff first. So it was free to do that, as meaning no lab fees.
Yeah,
You've spent much time to learn this, and then the
yeah.
time to diagnose that from this area. But the lab fees are, in a sense, test second. You probably have an idea what you want to do, and maybe in body tests are a little bit more accurate for certain things. The tests we have on the market for in home for mold, they are accurate, but even that word's interesting because they're accurate for what they're reading, and they're not ever going to tell you the rest of the home. The human has to do that who's trained. So all that to say, when I walk into a house, I am not even really thinking about testing. I'm thinking about what can I find visually, that is a sign of current or previous water damage, which is the prereq to mold. How is this building built? Are there gaps and cracks in different places where moisture infiltration can happen? You start to get the trained eye, and you can do a lot of searches on this. You can go through my YouTube pages. I'm going to put more and more content out about how to inspect your own home, because I tell homeowners, if you know what you're looking for and how to look and are willing to spend 1 to 2 to 3, really 3 good hours to inspect your own home with a bright flashlight, a moisture meter, and a borescope camera, that's only costs like $100 on Amazon combined. Okay, so every test on the market is already going to be twice that. But with $100 and some time, you'll get an idea of, there's probably problems here. I smelled something here. I saw water damage there. I remembered when that leaked and we didn't handle it well. Ton of dust built up in that duct. Like, what happened there? Now you found all the data. Then we start thinking about testing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one test called the ERMI test. It's a dust collection, maybe a lot of people have heard of. I won't get into, I have a whole, YouTube video about that specific test. You're collecting dust throughout the house. And so when you send it to the lab to see what's in the innocent looking household dust, they will tell you which of 36 mold species are in that dust. And all that tells us is, hey, there's probably some mold sources in the house somewhere. You have to, at minimum, clean the house, but really it leaves us at square one. You got to go find where that came from. Is there a current source in the house? Because dust is not ever going to point to it came from there. There's a lot of airflow that happens in a home. How old is the dust? Where did it come from? A lot of questions. So you have to be finding the sources. With air samples, total waste of money if you don't inspect and you grab just, one, two, even 10 air samples in a house, and you barely inspect the house and you just collect air for 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, what's the likelihood that mold is uh, jumping out from a certain place to be caught in an air sample, when really you could have went and found it, over here? I've literally taken air tests very close to a mold source, known, soaking wet, and the air sample is very, very low. And I'm like, huh, because it's only collecting air, like a little bucket of air, for
Mm-hmm.
a short period of time. It's not a 24/7, reading of that. But does air move and temperature change and things 24/7? Yes. So it's a snapshot in time versus a surveillance. But air samples can be very, very useful in certain cases if the inspector or the person's doing them in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, surface sample, the most accurate. We have a questionable looking, funky looking substance here. Let's take a tape or swab lift of it, and tape lift or swab sample of it, send it to the lab. Presence, absence, it's there, it's this type, bam. Like, that's the most accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But also, even with that one, it's like, if it's looking like a gooey black circular surface right under a sink, you're really just paying for the curiosity of what type is there,
Yeah.
but it needs to get remediated because good find, you found it.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of, the visual assessment's going to give you most of what you need to know, knowing what to look for, how to look. You can search for these, checklists of searching for mold in your house. Then, based on what we're finding, smelling, seeing, all that, then we determine, let's test here and here. So
Okay.
every test
Yeah.
has a strength and limitation. I wish I could say, and maybe there will be, do this test to really know if there's a problem in the house. But I think there's a process of elimination to say there's a high likelihood, based on the history of the home, how the home's been maintained, what leaks and things happened, things like that.
Yeah. Totally. And if you're aware of your body and your health, like,
That's it,
as you said, it's like you can walk into it, like, I can walk into a space and be like, "This is moldy." Like a
for sure.
restaurant or a church or whatever, and I'm like, "I would never live here, but I'll be okay for 15 minutes," or whatever. Um,
Well
so not
said. The
everyone.
body is a Not everyone has that, but that's so good because the body is a better test than anything we have on the market. I can promise you that. I've had people
Mhm.
tell me, I know there's a problem here. I just know it. I can sense it. I'm like, you know your home and your body better than I do. Rock and roll. And I found it. So, it
Yeah,
happens many times where the homeowner knows. So trust yourself.
yeah. And how often is it that, like, people that you're working with have worked with other people and been maybe gaslit or whatever, and I can't find anything, and then you come in and find something? Does that happen often?
For sure. That's
Yeah.
why, and I never want to like tear other people down because I've probably missed things too. There's a lot of things in a home that's covered up. You got to demo things. There's trained mold dogs that do a darn good job at times if they're trained well and the handler's trained well, to quite literally sniff out things that no other tool could tell. And it's behind building materials. There's multiple layers. How many things were built over this? Um, a lot of hard to reach areas in a home, building. But if you only spent under an hour inspecting the house, I can tell you right there, you're not even getting a confident, hey, your house is good. That's not even a confident saying what that person said. So I think for a 2,000 square foot house, uh, somewhat standard size, then your inspection should be no less than 3 hours, probably closer to six. It just depends on how in depth you're going to go, what you're finding. But taking the time and really being thorough and detailed is knowing what to look and how to look and all that is really that's the key and going to give us the most data.
If you've ever felt anxious about mold in your day to day, I get it. Once your eyes are open to the realities of mold and the dangers of mycotoxins, you can't unsee it. And that can cause a little bit of anxiety, which is why I use Microbalance Health products every day in my home, in my car, in my day to day life, in my loads of laundry to help keep mycotoxins at bay and stay on top of mold for good. Use my code ROOTS and FRUITS at checkout to save 10% on all of Microbalance Health products, non-toxic, mold spore killing cleaning products for your home.
It's the best start because I've been in enough houses where I walk in and within 5 minutes, I'm like, guys, you didn't need me. This was right here, right? So
Yeah.
there's like there's a trap door. I've had this happen multiple times. A trap door in the closet that opens up to the crawl space, and there's standing water this high, and it's really humid. I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, just
Oh,
open that. Like start here, right? I could go
yeah.
find many spots of mold everywhere in the rest of the house, but this is
Mhm.
our number one priority. We got to put money here and time here first before, like I always say, don't go for the minor little paper cuts when you have a massive tumor over here.
Such a good
Okay.
analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm curious, the difference I was told, in our home, I was like, visibly, I see some things, and the inspector came in, not to bash them at all, just different philosophies,
Of
different
course.
trains of thought. But they were like, "Oh, that's old. That's dried mold, so it's fine." And I was like,
Mm.
I don't think so. So talk about like obviously mold does need moisture to grow, but at some point, does it dry out and does it still produce those mycotoxins theoretically?
Great question. Mycotoxins is not the only thing that is hazardous. The spores themselves can be the
Okay.
MVOCs, the microbial volatile organic compounds. That is the digestive process of it going into our building materials. That is a off gut. There's a lot of things with these that it's like just handle the whole nest, and you'll take care of everything in the nest. Okay, so it's like that's why I don't get too caught up on any one thing. If there's a problem and there was a problem, it's getting handled. So great question. I love using analogies. I make up many of them myself. Almost all of them I use are original, but this was my favorite one that I'll take from David Myrick out in DC. Does great remediations, really to a T. He said if you had someone who had a peanut allergy, okay, and you said, "Hey, let's just spray and kill the peanut," no, right? That's not it. Okay. Is the
Mhm,
peanut alive and soaking wet and all? And no, but it's still allergenic, right?
mhm,
Pollen that's floating around outside. Oh, it's dead and dry. Well, you're still sneezing and you have it, right? So
mhm,
a lot of the asbestos, lead, these are dead and dry. These are certain things that we need to understand that even though it's dead and dry, and really dead means dormant, because if I re-watered it, it would probably regrow. And the
mhm,
basic understandings people need to understand is that mold is structured like a plant or a tree. It'll behave more like an animal. At a species level, it's a mix. Fungi is more of a mix between a plant and an animal. But there's just certain types that are more toxigenic than others. Not the God-made molds floating around outside in nature is usually not going to be the stuff that's rocking our health as much
mhm,
as water now starts to soak into our building materials, and then those spores get inoculated, and that's where we have an actual growth spot. Okay, it gets
mhm,
wet, starts to grow, dries out, but it's still there. Either way, wet or dry, alive or dormant, it's got to be identified and taken out.
mhm,
And then after removal, the thorough deep cleaning, it's small particle cleaning, removing the little microscopic invisible stuff. I would say it's the leaves that fell off the tree after we pulled the tree out, or the little
mhm.
forest out of the area. Now we need to clean up after it because you don't want to leave all the microscopic leaves or spores behind.
Right. But if you're just focusing on the leaves and you never get to the root of the tree or remove the tree, then
That's right.
it's gonna keep
That's right. And
infecting.
that's exactly. And that's why one air purifier is not going to fix all your problems. Like it's literally just going to collect whatever air is blowing through it. And it's not going to
Mhm.
clean any surfaces for you or go, remove any materials that are unsalvageable. So it'll help. I mean, it'll dilute the
Yeah,
air a little bit, but it's not a
yeah,
solution in itself. Yeah.
yeah. It's funny you mentioned the peanut thing because my husband's allergic to peanuts. And I was really
Interesting.
concerned about this home, and he's like amazing and open to all the things, but he's not as like he can't feel the things, he's not as intuitive. So in some ways I'm like, I don't feel like you believe me. And I was explaining to him, I'm like, every time I go to the basement, I feel like to do laundry, I feel like I have to take my socks off before I come upstairs because it's contaminated in my mind. I'm like, it's like
Mm.
walking on peanut shells for you. And then he's like, oh, it kind of clicked for him. So that's a really funny thing that you brought up there, because that was totally the analogy that came to my mind to explain to my husband how I was feeling.
Oh, wow,
Um,
nice. Thank you,
yeah.
David, for that one. That was a great analogy. When I
Yeah.
heard that, I was like, "That's perfect." I've given many analogies about that one, but that one's the best.
Yeah. That is a good one. So you mentioned air purifiers. I'd love to talk about obviously remediation, removal. I don't know if those words are interchangeable, but
Great
what,
point.
um, yeah, I guess what would you say about that? And then also that preventative cleaning up the leaves, so to speak. Like,
Mhm.
what's your favorite air purifier? And if you had to spend money on an air purifier or a dehumidifier, what would you do? Like, what do you suggest for people in that
Nice. Yeah.
department?
So yeah, priority number one is identifying the problems and getting them removed, because I need to touch on what you said with remediation and removal, very much the same.
Okay.
Because remember, if mold is like a plant or a tree, to simply spray something on it to try to kill it doesn't actually do the removal.
Mhm.
Do you have to throw everything away, including metal and glass and stuff like that? That's the nuance, and the important part is that mold needs that soil to grow on. Okay, it's back to the plant analogy. So if it's embedded into drywall or embedded into like carpets and more soft, porous material, then it's got to go. You can't properly uproot that thing. It's in the fibers. The roots of the mold is in the fibers and it's not salvageable. So that's layer number one. Porous stuff, if visually contaminated with condition three mold, it's got to go. Next layer back is wood and concrete, usually. Okay. In that, it's case by case. You concrete, you really can't like remove much. We're going to have a certain protocol, but how are we removing? And even out of wood at times, you want to keep the wood but remove the mold out of the wood. Okay, so again, pretend that wood is like a soil and you're trying to uproot the mold out of it. That's where sanding, wire brushing, you're doing this aggressive agitative removal to remove the mold out and then leave the wood surface there. And then that final step of removal is the dust-free, HEPA vacuum, damp wipe down with microfiber towels, HEPA vacuum again. That's mold remediation in a really quick nutshell of those three layers. You replace what you can't salvage, you remove mold out of the places you can, and then you do a final deep cleaning in the surrounding areas.
Mhm.
Where I would spend money first is is dehumidification, because if the humidity is high, you're going to be not just feeding current mold sources with humidity. It's a like rainforest effect,
Mhm.
but also if you're in a damp, humid climate, humidity itself is enough to cause mold to grow in and on dust, even and on other places if it's not dehumidified, circulating, and moving well.
Mhm.
So love air purifiers. There's a lot of great brands out there. I don't just stand by one. If you have a really good pre-filter, a good HEPA filter that's a proper HEPA, true HEPA filter, and then a VOC, carbon filter that is doing the VOCs and gases and odors. Those three layers are usually good, and every company that specializes in good, air purification will probably have all those. Some have higher CFMs, which means like they're going to actually draw more air into it and not just passively clean a little section, but actually, be a little bit more higher powered.
Mhm.
They're not so aesthetically nice, but if you've ever seen those Rosenthal ones, Corsi Rosenthal ones, where you make it at your house, it's like a box fan and you put
Oh,
actual MERV 13 filters or HEPA filters and you like tape them together. It's this ugly looking box, but it's actually really, really effective.
wow.
Tested very well, tested better than a lot of the expensive air purifiers, to be quite honest. So that's a really good low cost way to just get a lot of good uh, like air changes per hour to filter it through, just
Mhm.
to dilute that air that you're breathing. But
Mhm.
if you clean the air with that, you clean the surfaces manually with a HEPA vacuum and damp wipe down, like I mentioned. um, and dehumidification, like I said, is extremely important to stop and slow any additional growth. Trying to keep the house under 55% consistently, ideally even under 50, is good. Every home and climate's a bit different, but that's what you're shooting for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. You talked about on the remediation side, like what to throw away, what to HEPA vacuum wipe, etc.
Yeah.
When in a situation where, like ours, where we're leaving and we've tossed a lot of stuff, but I'd love you to speak to that. If other people are going through this, because I know they are, what belongings do you recommend tossing, and what is, not living from a place of fear of like everything's contaminated, but
Right.
also
Right.
like being wise. It's like if you're going to leave that, then you don't want to bring that problem into a new safe environment. So
hmm
have you kind of coached people through that before, and what do you recommend?
I coach people through it all the time, and I wish there was just one exact answer for everyone. It really is a case by case, and the variables in my equation is how sensitive is the person to these different things, how how moldy is the environment it's in. Okay, so it's very different if this is a chronically damp, humid environment where there was a flood and there's mold in a lot of places of the house, and the couch over here is like right up against a wall that has mold, and it's like gone every time, gone.
Yeah.
That same couch in a house that had maybe in the master bedroom one area on the opposite side of the house, yes, you're going to get some airflow that maybe lands on it. Do you need to, for everybody's sensitivity and for a more localized mold issue, now start to go to the rest of the house and throw everything away? Not necessarily. It really is a case by case. But the main decisions we need to make is on those porous items. Okay, couches, um, mattresses, and just those more softer ones, because that's where the stuff will like kind of embed itself into. Much harder to clean. If they, like I said, if they have visible growth, a lot of closets that get chronically damp and you get white and green spots on your leather shoes or your, I've been in basements and attics where the suitcases start to get little white and green spots. Just
Mm-hmm.
toss those. Okay. You cannot clean those. If we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of having to hypothesize how much is really on this surface, it's very hard to do that. You can do different types of testing, a vacuum style ERMI, which is expensive for one test, but it's you'll get a good idea of what's really in there. So you pull the dust out of the content and send it to the lab. You can do a lower cost like tape lift, where you stick the tape on the surface and get an idea of what's there. It's not reading the entire inner aspects of these contents, but it's some data point. So those can help us make some decisions. But I love the quote that says the best solution to pollution is dilution. So I would always say that if you we want to dilute it to the mold safe level. And so if you've already corrected all the issues in the home and you've deep cleaned everything in the home, now the contents is usually that last percentage that we're trying to bring dilution to. And the best return on your investment is to potentially toss the porous items, because especially like sleep's impacted. We've had this mattress for so long, chronically damp area. I wake up feeling rough. Like, let's replace a mattress. That's going to be a good use of your money. Maybe not every last book in the house,
Yeah.
right? It's like, how much are you going to be huffing those books every day? So it's a
Yeah.
it's a case by case on this stuff. The semi porous, wood cabinets and stuff, it's almost always cleanable if you really do a good job on it. Air compressor is really good. You blow the heck out of it with a air compressor, like take it outside and you're blowing that stuff off, and then you do the damp wipe downs and HEPA vacuum. So it's a case by case. I just rarely think that because we got every last content, clean, that's the thing that's going to change everyone's health. I think the
Mhm.
bigger components of the home take priority, and then we improve it with the contents. But there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, where's the couch that you're buying? Where did it really come from?
Oh,
There's so many unknowns already that if you can definitely, we can all psych ourselves out with
yeah.
the invisible aspect of what's called condition two mold, which is those leaves. So it fell off from a condition three.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I used to like thrift a lot or buy used furniture and things. And
Yeah.
even from a health standpoint, I'm like, well, it's less VOCs. Like you walk into a furniture store and you get a headache and it's like, whoa, right? But
hmm
now I'm like, after going through all the mold stuff, I'm like, I would take the new smell over the possible mold because that goes
Yeah.
away.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
exactly. It's that's why I said it's case by case. You really got to follow your intuition, like on what's going to be best for you.
Hmm. What have you noticed, or how have you been able to encourage people going through some sort of mold journey, the emotional impacts and the toll of this kind of journey on people, and what advice do you have for people there?
Hmm. That's a great question. That's a big passion of mine. Very high percentage of who I work with. It's a massive component.
Mhm,
Um, the stress, the fear of the unknown, I think one of the biggest things I caught early was whatever you're going through, um, don't attach someone else's story and their horror story and all of a sudden adopt it as your own, because now
mhm,
your entire lens of your reality is going to be clouded by theirs. And though there might be things in common, it's so important to stay really present and take your situation one thing at a time. That's maybe not as emotional. It actually seems very logical, but it can help the emotional states from getting too stirred up, because it's actually what I've noticed. Very empathetic people have a very strong superpower of feeling other people and wanting to help or wanting to solve, but then their perception of it will kind of adopt it quickly. They will absorb it and then go ahead and apply it to their own safety and family and kind of like use that as now a new protective measure. And
mhm,
I've just seen where the Facebook groups or the everyone, the hardships just start to really become contagious in in a sense. Um,
mhm,
and I think it's best to really get an idea, where really is my home, where really is my health, and let me get the knowledge I need and have confidence in those steps and take it one thing at a time to
mhm,
handle this. Uh, the emotional side can be very, very hard. I am a big time believer in Jesus and in the power of God to literally take us from our circumstances into a place of freedom and peace, no matter what storm is happening around us. So, for those who uh, align the same and know the God that I do, we definitely go that direction a lot, because I was
mhm,
once just not the same person. I got into drugs. I lived wild. I lived full of fear, and I've been radically changed. And so I just give freely to others if they're open to it, um,
mhm,
because to maintain hope is really, really number one. We need to have a vision beyond this, and then we need to start to see that there's purpose in the pain, and it starts to give us a lot of strength, because those who have gone through this stuff usually become some of the best people to help the next one. Your
mhm,
pain's not going to be wasted. If you're walking through it with God, you're going to see aspects of yourself and with God and aspects of God that you would have never seen
mhm,
otherwise. And
mhm,
there's really a lot of beauty in it. Um, and for those who really don't, align with God or believe that same way, I think that either way, the mold situation is going to confront a lot of your fears or what you're holding on to in life as your supply, as your comfort, as your safety, as your providing, your provider. We all have them. I mean, we all have a God we're serving, even if it's self or self protection. And so that's where mold and hardships in general, chronic illness, really confronts us with all that stuff to really ask those deep questions.
mhm. Absolutely, I resonate with that. Like, also love the Lord, and I feel like I'm shocked by how this situation in our life stirred up so many things that actually
Mm.
changed my faith, and not, and part of it was negative, like, it was scary, it was almost like a faith crisis, and not questioning God, but and, like, his existence, but more questioning my
Oh yeah.
ability to discern things, and that brought up a lot for me where I was like, we were prayerfully considering this house, and, feeling like, "Did we hear wrong?" And it brought up so much for me, to the point where I now feel like I have this level of better theology or understanding about God than I did before, because I'm like, oh, never would have known that I had this belief that I can mess up God's plan by choosing the wrong thing.
Wow.
And
Nice.
it uncovered that. And now I'm like, actually, I can't. Sometimes life just sucks and houses are moldy, and it's not a punishment from God or anything like that.
That's right.
But yeah, absolutely. It brings up all of
Wow,
that
that's
stuff.
awesome. So proud of you.
Mhm.
That's so good. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
best question every day we wake up is, God, who do you want to be for me today?
Mm.
Right? It's like, yeah, not only bringing our previous experiences of God, but really the daily bread, the new mercies of today, and that
Mhm.
He's relational first, and He really, really, really wants to know Josie and wants Josie to know that he knows her and loves her
Mhm,
and is bringing her through, and all of it has purpose. And
mhm,
yeah, there's a lot of depth to it. I've very much prayed and contemplated on this for 7+ years and had a lot of those very hard questions as well. And I think he's given me a lot of keys, and that's yeah, a different topic that I did a whole
yeah,
course on. I'm going to do a lot more content around
wow,
that, but it's a massive passion of mine is the spiritual aspects of this. We
mhm,
don't just look at the spiritual stuff and don't fix the home and say, oh, it's all just no, they are all together, very much integrated. It's cool.
mhm. Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah.
Um, so to wrap things up for people listening, I know a lot of people that have reached out to me on Instagram are like, "Hey, I suspect maybe something in my house." So I just want to leave people with very practical, like first steps, because it is very overwhelming,
Yeah.
especially when you're just dipping your toes in this whole conversation. So if someone listening suspects that they maybe are dealing with mold, or maybe that's part of their health journey or home crisis or whatever,
Hmm.
what's the I guess a few examples of a first step they could take to go a little bit deeper into this.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Pay attention to how you feel in the home versus out of the home.
Mm,
What has changed in the house and therefore in health, because health is number one why we're even doing this. And then if you know that mold comes from moisture of some sort, either liquid water situation or, like I said, a chronic dampness, go to those hot spots first. Use the bright flashlight, a moisture meter, which you can literally put on different surfaces, and a borescope camera, which is a little extended camera that can go behind different places. And I'll put something together, whether it's a video, a document, a little mini course or mini something on this. But you can do a lot, like I said, as homeowners yourself to say, okay, we did have or do have a potential water damage here, and doing that initial part first is very, very important. And then obviously it just is good to have an in-person inspection from someone who knows this and have seen this over and over. They should have knowledge of the home. They should have a really good interview with you about the home. They should know the health implications and take it seriously. They should take their time in the home, like I mentioned, and understand some aspects of building science and know how to properly remediate, not just kill and treat and seal up or cover something that's there. Maybe that is harder to find in Canada, so maybe we need to talk off camera about some
yeah,
solutions there on training people or a trip up there that I could do or whatever. Because I do travel around the country, in now countries to do that. But I do want to train more people. I think there's one good inspector for every 100,000 homes that need it. Right? There's so many homes
yeah.
and buildings in America that really need a good, thorough inspection. So
Mhm,
um, the I want to say that, oh, do this test, but it's not until you start getting that information that then you can do a proper test. There
mhm,
is a lab called assuredbio.com. And that is, I believe they're out of Tennessee. I believe they would ship to and work with Canada. But assuredbio.com, you can get tape and swab samples and even ERMIs if you want as well, but those are more expensive. Just to do those samples if you find something. And then gotmold.com, great guy who developed it, been an inspector for 25 years. He does these, he'll send a kit with an air pump, and you can do an air sample, in a localized spot, so under a sink or wherever it might be. Um, I usually recommend those for those who've worked with me virtually as in a consult, so I can say, hey, put it here. That'll be the best use, so we don't again waste our air sample for a center of a room and get no data and left at square one. Um,
yeah,
so I would say do your own research on this and then bring in a good inspector and get a good idea of what's happening in the house and what the plan is for it. And then the cleaning, right? All the maintenance steps is really important. Keep humidity low, keep air flowing, and get the dust levels down.
yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Great tips.
You're
And
welcome.
in closing, where can people find your work, your videos, all of your information, or even work with you maybe virtually? Or I don't know if anyone in America listens to this. Probably not. I think it's
Let's
100%
get you into
Canadian.
America. Oh, that's awesome. No,
Yeah.
let's definitely get your podcast into America,
All right.
more
Let's
more
do it.
visibility.
Yeah.
Um, Everything is Melrose Mold Solutions. So YouTube, Instagram, melrosemoldsolutions.com. Um, and that is just going to be hopefully a lot of free info. I always tell people, before you spend $1 with me or with anybody, just go through the content, and you'll learn a lot, hopefully, and get your eyes attuned. Really, just I want to transfer a trained eye to people and just help them navigate the mines in the minefield so they don't waste money, because that's a huge thing in this industry. It's just the waste of money. Um, and then, yes, I have virtual options where we do an hour-long Zoom call after you fill out like a 45 question questionnaire that gives me a lot of info about the home. You can send in pictures, videos. We get a really good customized plan after that call of like, here's the best direction to go based on your situation. And then finally, the in-person options, I am willing to travel. It's a little bit more of a premium price, but I spend a good 5, 6 hours at the house and really get a whole report and everything to you. Some people follow me for every step in the inspection, and then they really learn firsthand what I'm doing, and they're very empowered in the future.
Coming up next on the Roots and Fruits podcast mold mini-series.
You see a lot of mold, just a large amount of mold, black stuff all over the place. Leave it alone. Let somebody else with the proper attire go attack that.